Greetings, parts and passengers. Welcome back to the next episode of the Dare to Talk podcast. With me is a guest, Chris, also known as the Carnivorous Beast. He is on the Carnivore Diet. He runs a channel on YouTube called Carnivorous Beast under the same name, also on Instagram. He is an advocate for the Carnivore Diet and is following and documents his journey on the carnivore diet and also his strength training journey too. So thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So could you give a little bit of a background as to your journey so far from the beginning and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been on the carnivore diet now for about 10 months. I started properly in February this year. And as the years gone by, I've been going sort of gradually more and more carnivore. So I did start with dairy in my diet. I cut that out in May, except for butter. So I kept butter in, but then I cut that out very recently as well. So I'm using just animal fats. Prior to that, I was doing sort of a keto paleo kind of diet. So I'd eliminated processed foods, sugars, those sort of stuff. And I found that very beneficial for me moving into the carnivore diet. I've kind of gradually come down step by step. For me, the journey was more for sort of mental health side of things. I wanted to deal with that. I had some other skin issues as well. And I was also holding on to some sort of visceral fat that I wanted to get rid of as well. So those were sort of my reasons for just going, do you know what, I'm going to try a carnivore diet out for a month at least. And then 9 months, 10 months later, I'm still here. So
Yeah. So beforehand, you were on keto and paleo. So did you find there was a much more improvements transitioning to carnivore than there was on keto or paleo?
yeah, so I always find the initial transformation from processed food to real food, as I say, is the hardest because most people in society are addicted to the processed foods. Whether they know it or not, most people are, and it's difficult to come away from those foods. And a lot of foods that are out there in the supermarket are processed these days, and the convenience, all of those side of things. So coming from that sort of thing, which I've grown up with, I've eaten these foods when I was younger. I've eaten them throughout, and I did a lot of sort of bodybuilding side of things. So there's a lot of that kind of food there as well. Protein shakes are just laden with sugar, and so breaking that was the most difficult. And I think, like, I know my partner is doing paleo at the moment, and he said as well that the most difficult part was coming from processed food to eating real food. And I think from there it feels a lot easier. So that having that springboard of paleo keto, then stepping into carnivore, for me it wasn't really it didn't really faze me at all.
Yeah, I started carnivore in July this year because before I was on sort of the sort of diet of the rice, a bit of protein and veg, and I kind of stuck to that, but I was eating also a lot of fruit and veg. And then my stomach just there was a point where it just started getting worse and worse, like IBS and digestive issues, and like you said, mental health. My anxiety was through the roof with that. So and then I went carnivore as like a last ditch effort and found that actually all my issues had gone away. And interesting, you pointed out about mental health as a reason you transitioned. I found my anxiety disorder and the anxiety that I deal with has completely reduced to what it was before. Have you noticed any differences in terms of your mental health being carnivore?
Yeah, so I definitely noticed that I can deal with things a lot better, and I never say that it's eliminated my anxiety completely, because I don't think that's ever possible. It's how you deal with things, and
Definitely.
I think, my my mental state, I feel a lot more aware of things. I feel a lot more, I mean, like being able to pay attention to things and actually give things attention for much longer time. I can do that so much easier now. And that's really helped me with my sort of anxiety as well. I suffered from body dysmorphic disorder as well, which being on the carnivore diet has helped in sort of two ways because I've lost weight, so I didn't have that visceral fat, so I'm happy with how I look now. But also as well, I can just, as I said before, deal with things like this year has obviously been pretty stressful for a lot of people, and this would be the sort of year that would usually sort of tip me over the edge. Maybe a lot of different events, not just worldwide, but obviously at home and all that sort of stuff. And I've just been able to deal with it a lot more. And I put that down to the carnivore diet because that's the sort of one thing that I've changed this year. And just I've been on the medications and all of these sort of stuff, and nothing's had the same effect as this diet has had for me.
Yeah, so has in terms of your medications, have you
Yeah.
reduced being on your medications through the
So
carnivore
I'm
diet?
completely off them now.
Really? Wow.
So I was on them until I think it was April, May time, around that sort of time, and I really I think because I'd started the carnivore diet, I really just I wanted to do things more holistically, more naturally, and I wanted to heal my body without putting chemicals inside of it. And I try and do that in a lot of other aspects of my life now. Like I even changed my toothpaste. I changed all these other things because I was like, I don't want chemicals in my body. I want to do things more naturally, and that was one of the big indicators. I want to be off medication and I want to do this more of a natural way.
Have you told like any of your doctors that you're doing the carnivore diet?
So I haven't actually seen a doctor since.
Yeah.
The the only person, sort of medical professional I've seen since was a dentist,
I saw
and
your
that was
video on that. It was really
yeah,
interesting because you use the pink toothpaste, don't you?
that's it. Yeah,
The
that's
pinky
what.
one,
Yeah,
yeah, same as us. We use that too. But it was
yeah,
interesting to hear about what he said about the condition of your teeth just
yeah.
from being on a carnivore diet. It's like one of the you wouldn't expect it just from eating meat.
Yeah, and that's it. I can even feel like I used to have my front two teeth. I've got quite small teeth, and the front two always had issues with them being quite worn. And I was always told, I was having protein shakes, eating a lot of fruit, all of this sort of stuff, and they were wearing down. I used to have a lot of work done on them. Now this year, they feel the strongest they've ever felt. And I've living. When I told him that I don't eat any sugars whatsoever, he couldn't believe it. And the fact he was like, well, there's hidden sugars in everything. I was like, no, I don't consume any sugar whatsoever. And it was just that sort of like disbelief from him, thinking, well, that can't be right. And I was like, you're a medical professional. Do you know what I mean? You're supposed to
Yeah.
be. This should be a good thing that you're hearing this. But yeah, it was a bit. That was quite a eye opener for me.
Yeah. So going back to the what your way of eating, what
Yeah.
is a typical day of eating for you?
Okay. Yeah. So every breakfast for me, I fast until about 10 o'clock. And every breakfast for me is I have 6 eggs and 6 bacon every day without fail. So, and I love that. There's if you can show me one person out there who doesn't like eggs and bacon, so
A vegan might have something to say about
that's true. Yeah,
that.
they might try and replicate it though. So, so yeah, you've got that for breakfast, and then I usually have lunch around about 1:30ish. So that could be all sorts. Like so today, I'm just gonna have some mackerel. But then it could be whilst I'm in work, I usually just have a tray of mince. So cook off mince, put 2 eggs in it as well. I do use herbs just to sort of give a bit of flavour to foods. So maybe put a little bit of herbs in them, and then I sometimes have a snack about 3 o'clock, and that's usually sort of like sliced roast beef or eggs, boiled eggs, those sort of things. Because I do a lot of strength training, so I want to try and keep my calories fairly high. And then tea, like for example, last night I had a roasted beef joint, just sliced that up and ate that. And because it was quite a large one, I've got that again for tea tonight. And I know you recently had steak and butter gal on your
Yeah.
podcast, and so I've taken her egg pudding. So sometimes I do have that in the evening, which I absolutely love as well. So that's kind of like my everyday. Drink plenty of water. When I'm training, I put some Himalayan pink salt in the
Yeah.
water as well. So I'm replenishing minerals whilst I'm training. And I do drink coffee in the morning as well. I know that can be a bone of contention with some people in the carnivore community, but that's sort of my non-negotiable. I do like a coffee, and now and again have some sort of like herbal teas as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm same. I usually stick with, I think mince is probably the one thing that I have almost every other day. A joint
It's
at the
cheap, isn't
weekend.
it? So
Yeah, it's get the really fatty stuff,
yeah,
and then every Saturday we have a brisket. So it's brisket
nice.
Saturday.
I
Um,
like that.
but yeah, I have usually have herbal teas because I feel like otherwise just drinking water, because I don't really like
Yeah.
coffee, but just drinking
Okay.
water I'd be bored to death.
What's
But
your go-to herbal tea?
peppermint, just
Oh, I'm the
peppermint.
same as well. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
pepper tea.
See, I think it's one of them things where when I was like before I went carnivore, I used to just drink peppermint all the time because obviously they say it's soothing for your stomach, and then
Yeah.
it's just naturally just like, oh, peppermint. I'll stick with it.
It's got that nice sweet taste as well without being
Yeah,
sugary, hasn't it? So
yeah, it's lovely. um,
yeah.
so, what was your a typical day of eating before you went carnivore? Then, in
Okay.
comparison.
Yeah, so I'll go dig back on that one. So um breakfast would be I would have oats usually.
Yeah, I was same. I used to have that all the time.
Yeah, because I had in this, I was, in this fitness world, bodybuilding. I also used to do powerlifting as well. So I was like, well, I need to eat as much as I can, get as many calories. So I'd have oats in the morning, bananas and honey all mixed in. And that would be first thing when I wake up as well. So I never used to fast. Then I'd have another snack about 10 o'clock again, and that would be probably eggs, boiled eggs at that time. Lunch would be, I'm trying to remember what I'd have now. It's like it'd probably be a pasta kind of thing. So it used to be a lot of pasta and tuna mixed in with some cheese. I used to eat a lot of cheese, and that is my one thing that I miss is cheese. But I do allow myself sometimes to have a little bit here and there, but I don't keep it in my diet as a sort of day-to-day thing. And I'd have a shake in the afternoons. That'd be sort of probably a mass gainer sort of protein shake, which was full of sugars, full of flavorings, all of this sort of stuff. I'd mix in blueberries, oats, honey, all sorts into this one shake as well. So the amount of sort of sugar and calories just within this one drink would have been astonishing, I bet. So and then, I'd eat tea. Sometimes I would eat like those ready-made curries or have pizzas and things like that. I'd eat sugary treats. So, and I look back now and go, no wonder why I was feeling anxious, depressed, and all this sort of stuff. And I was putting all of this rubbish in my body. It was not, it makes sense to me now. But back then I thought, well, this is a normal sort of everyday diet. So,
Did you have a feeling of like getting hungry a lot quicker then as well?
absolutely, yeah. So I don't really, I mean, I do get hungry now and again at the moment, but those hunger pangs don't really come that often. And the fact that I can fast until 10 o'clock, I train fasted as well. So I go to the gym in the morning. I currently don't have a car, so I'm cycling as well. So that's a 6 mile journey to the gym and back.
Wow.
So, I'm doing all of that fasted and I still have the energy, for the whole day. And I don't, if I'm back for like 9:30 in the morning, then I'll still wait until 10 o'clock to eat. I'm not dying to go and get some food in me. Whereas my mentality used to be, if I don't eat, I can't train. and I needed that energy in my body in order to go and lift weights and all of this sort of stuff. And this sort of carnivore, it shifted me, and I love training fasted now.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you go to the gym then?
So I currently go 5 days a week. So that's things have been sort of flexible recently, with lockdowns and all of those sort of things. Gyms not being open. Luckily I have some equipment at home. So when we are sort of in a lockdown, I train at home. But then yeah, I go 5 days a week to my gym as well.
Do you go fasted every single day? Train fast?
Yeah, every
Oh,
day now. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, I mean, I go 3 times a week, and I used to, when I used to go to the gym at uni before
yeah.
lockdowns, um, I always used to train after I'd eaten like an hour or so
Mm.
because I thought that that's kind of what you had to do. I don't really
Yeah,
know.
I was the same. Yeah,
And then versus now, I feel like if I go to the gym and work out after eating, I feel really sluggish and heavy,
yeah,
and I feel like I don't get as much done.
yeah.
Versus if I go fasted, I feel like it's easier.
Absolutely, yeah. I find that I feel like much more lighter, more energetic, and it would if my partner used to always train in the mornings regardless, and said, you should try it, and I was like, no, no, I can't. I've got to eat before training, and I've got to be fueled from the day in order to do that. And I just look back and go, how wrong was I? I and I do train differently to how I used to train now. So I don't do powerlifting training anymore, but I do sort of just more aesthetic strength building side of things. And I think the reason I've moved into that is partially because of the carnivore diet. So I'm like, wow, I've lost all of this weight, and I'm happy with how I look now. So that's kind of how I've been training it now.
So, in sort of with doing your strength training on the carnivore diet, what
Yeah.
have you noticed in that area?
Yeah,
Differences?
so initially I did there was a bit of a dip,
Mm.
and I think that's because I was adjusting to the new sort of energy source of using more fat than carbohydrate, and so I did take a bit of a dip in my strength, but then it's kind of done like a Nike tick as such, and it's going back up again. With being sort of in and out of the gym this year, it's been difficult to maintain a sort of trajectory. It's been more of a bumpy road, but it has been more going up since starting the carnivore diet, which is quite positive. And it's the energy levels as well throughout. I don't, as you mentioned before, about being sluggish. I don't feel that way in the gym anymore, and even after doing a 3 mile cycle before getting to the gym, I still feel like, right, ready to go. Let's do this, smash it out, and do another 3 mile cycle home.
Yeah, wow. So in terms of oh brain, come on, strength training. Sorry, I'm trying to get with it. Um, I saw you've done did a video on, because I've seen similar, because I'm in a few carnivore groups online,
Yeah.
where a lot of people worry about going carnivore, you'll lose a lot of strength and a lot of
Okay.
muscle. And
Yeah.
I've seen you've done something on that before. I did watch the video when you did it. It was a while back now.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. Yeah.
but I think a lot of people seem to think by going carnivore, you just lose your strength. And I agree. There is a bit of a dip initially, because
Yeah.
when I went carnivore, um, the first, I'd say, month. I mean, there's the first 2 weeks. I thought I was like incapacitated in bed. I thought I was dying. but but then when I went to the gym, everything seemed a bit harder. But then once you
Yeah.
get through that, it actually, the opposite happened, and I found that I built muscle, and I've been building muscle much faster.
Yeah.
Especially from when lockdown happened, I lost a lot of muscle, but I've
Yeah.
gained that back like really quick. So do you think a lot of people think that by cutting out carbs, they're going
Yeah.
to lose strength?
I do think there is a lot of that, and you like even for myself, I've done a lot of Googling, looking for sort of typing in strength on carnivore, and there's not a lot really out there on that. And like, yes, you do get that initial dip, but if you're willing to work through it and stick with it, then it will come back up, and you will, get back to where you were on carbs, and then maybe even higher. You're consuming a lot of protein, you're consuming a lot of fat as well, good energy sources, and obviously the building blocks of muscles as well. You're also like, I mean, I don't know if it's the same for you, but the weight is like dropped off me. And without really doing much trying, you get to see a lot of people out there going, I need to do my cardio, I need to do all this
Mm,
to lose weight. I don't do any of that. I know I'm cycling at the moment, that's a relatively new thing. And um, but the weight is sort of dropped off me. So then, if you are building muscle, it looks a lot more sort of aesthetic. As whereas
yeah,
before, where I was consuming carbohydrates, there was a lot of fat around the muscle, and it didn't look as sort of like aesthetic as it was before. And with the strength as well, I was a lot stronger before, but I was also a lot heavier. Um, I'm now about I'm now nearing about 20 kilograms lighter than I was prior to the carnivore diet. So, when you put into the comparison of the strength of me being at this weight compared to that weight, there's that sort of disparity in between anyway. So overall, weight for weight, I'm probably in the same sort of category, if that makes sense.
yeah, I get you. I mean, you said there about body composition,
Yeah,
and that is like the one thing, the biggest thing I've noticed is that the change. And the interesting thing is of and I see it a lot in the carnivore groups of people. A lot of people are treating it like a just easy weight loss diet when
yeah,
it's more of just a natural way of eating and primarily a healing diet
yeah,
or way of eating, should I say? And
absolutely.
they wonder why the scale doesn't move and things, but it's like, well, that's not the point.
No,
If you
yeah,
look in the mirror, you see the changes way before anything happens.
yeah,
And I mean, the opposite happened to me on this carnivore diet. I mean, I'm really small. I think I weigh about 45, 46 kilograms when I started. I'm nothing.
okay,
But on the carnivore diet, I've put weight on, but it
yeah,
is my body composition has completely changed. So before, I
okay.
mean, I don't know about you, but I always, you can see the inflammation in your face before
Yeah,
the
and
diet.
I find myself now sort of like I've always been a people watcher. I'll sit and have a coffee and watch people, but now I'm looking at it going, they've got inflammation, they've got, do you know what I mean? You can see it so much more in people now when you kind of go through this process. So how was your diet before going on to carnivore? I'm just
mine
intrigued.
mine was um so before I was I used to I suffered really bad IBS, which sort of
Okay,
flared up a couple of years ago,
okay,
kind of out of the blue. And I got officially diagnosed with it the same year, a couple of years
okay.
back, at the doctors. They sort of said it was probably stress related,
Yeah,
because you have the mind and the gut connection.
yeah,
Um, and from then on, I sort of completely changed my diet because they said obviously the best way to tackle IBS is by just increasing fiber
yeah,
and cutting out, junk food. So, I mean, at that point, I'd gone gluten free because I,
yeah,
I believed gluten and wheat was probably causing it, and I had an intolerance to it.
yeah,
But when I got to third year, there was a point where everything sort of changed. I mean, I suffered from the constipation IBS, um, and it was just getting worse and worse. And I know some of it was stress related because I had exams and stuff, and it would always get worse just around that period.
Yeah.
But and there was a point where I was able to manage it with food, and I was eating like oats, like you said. I'd have
Yeah.
oats. I'd have like chopped up apples on top with bananas. I would have. I went and got loads of the, if in Holland and Barrett, where they have all the health stuff you
Yeah.
sprinkle on. I had chia seeds.
Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
I
I
had
was the
everything.
same.
I had everything going on it. There was, oh god, I can't remember what it was called, but there was, I had this powder on it that was like a natural pure fiber. Essentially, I had
Oh,
everything, and I believed then that meat was so hard to digest, and that
yeah.
I had to stop eating meat as much because it would cause constipation.
Yeah.
So if I was to have meat, I would have it for tea. I would maybe have some chicken, and that would be it. I would not go near beef because I was terrified I would get
Yeah.
blocked up. So my diet back then I was bordering plant based. I would say
Okay, well.
if I cut
Yeah.
out chicken, I probably wouldn't have eaten any meat. So I mean, it was it was surprising because I thought I was eating healthy. And
Yeah.
do you think you felt the same?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, having watched all sort of strength athletes or bodybuilders and all this sort of stuff, I thought, well, I'm replicating what I'm being told, so surely it's healthy. But
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, looking back now,
yeah, I mean, I thought I was eating perfect. And I mean, I went to the doctors and they asked me what I was eating one time in third year, and I was suffering. I was
yeah,
so unwell with it. And they said, well, what is your diet like? And I told them my diet, and they said, oh, you've got a perfect diet. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with your diet whatsoever. So, we don't really know what it is.
uh,
So I believed I was completely fine. And it got to the point where I had persistent bloating. So it looked like I was like 9 months pregnant all the time,
yeah,
from morning till nighttime, every
yeah,
single day for months. Um, so at that point, carnivore diet, as soon as I went carnivore, after maybe a week, I woke up one day, looked in the mirror, and my stomach was flat. And that was the first time I've ever seen a flat stomach in about maybe 3-4 months.
that
So
bloating goes away so quickly,
it
doesn't it?
does. Everything went away, and I mean, it was insane. But getting back onto inflammation, actually,
Yeah,
you said that you used to have dairy, but no longer have dairy. So could you
yeah.
explain a little bit why that is the case?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I did have some skin issues. I had some dry skin, like on my legs, and I used to get on my face as well. And I thought, going on the carnivore diet, I would, hopefully that will help it. And going through, I was still getting it, still getting these issues, and I was still having this bit of fat around my stomach as well. And I just like I've been watching some carnivore videos on YouTube and seen a lot of people have given up dairy, and I thought maybe that's what the issue is right now. I'm eating a lot of cheese, drinking a lot of milk and cream and all this sort of stuff, with the lactose and that sort of stuff. Maybe that's what's causing me the issues. So again, it was kind of like another 30-day experiment that lasted months and months instead. And I thought, well, I'm just going to try it out, see how we get on. And literally, I'd say within days, the skin issue just disappeared. It was gone. Um, and then I noticed as well the weight was just starting to come off pretty quickly. It was just dropping rapidly. And I was like, there must have been something within that, whether it was causing, as I said, inflammation with the skin, with the lactose, And I just thought there's no point going back on, although I do have cheese now and again. But
Just
because
as a
it is one of
treat.
that's it's my treat, my Achilles heel that is. So and with Christmas around the corner, I'm like, I will have some cheeses, but I'm not gonna go crazy. So
Yeah, I think I'm the same because I can't. Um, I'm allergic to cow's milk,
Okay.
And I mean a whole other plethora of things. That and egg
Yeah.
whites. So I can only
Oh,
have
okay.
yolks, which is a
Yeah.
shame.
It's the best part anyway, isn't
Yeah, true.
it?
But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't have any dairy. But I haven't
Okay.
really thought that much of a problem, I don't think, because I've never really
Oh.
wanted to. But when you cut out dairy, what made you want to stick with, what made you decide to stick with butter?
So I enjoyed the taste as part of it. So cooking with it, I found, made food taste really good. And I didn't really notice it causing me much of an issue
Mm.
at the time. So I'm stuck with it. And it was only about, I think it was about a month ago, I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna stop butter now and just see how I get on with just using animal fats. And just, yeah, just because I had a bit of a reoccurrence of sort of just redness around here, a little bit dry, and we weren't sure what it was. So I was like, I'm still having butter. I wonder whether that's having an issue. And since that, I've not had it as much. So, there could be a bit of correlation between those. But again, it is something, butter tastes amazing, but I think I was having far too much of it. And I think what this is sort of said to me is use animal fats for cooking, but maybe have butter in, very rarely, just now and again.
What animal fats do you cook with primarily?
So beef dripping mostly, do that. But then whenever I cook, I drain the fat off, and any excess fat and use that for future cooking. Do use lard sometime as well, because lard is relatively cheap to buy, so it's quite a handy one to have. But it's whether you like the taste of beef dripping, I think, is far better than lard. Lard has a sort of specific taste that I think some people may not like.
I think probably my favourite would be beef dripping or beef tallow. Either of
Yeah,
them. Tallow.
yeah,
If you
beef tallow
get
is
some
nice.
really
Yeah,
nice tallow, it's really good.
it's really good. Yeah,
So you run a YouTube channel called
yeah.
Carnivorous Beast. What made you want to set up that channel?
Okay, so that was, yeah, a good question. So I decided I used to watch Carnival Yogi quite a lot. So I
Yeah,
don't know. If you,
she was one
so
of the main people who actually influences for me, who got me sort of
yeah,
helped me get onto the diet.
yeah, same here as well. So like for me, I saw what she was doing on the channel, and I was like, I felt so much benefit from it that I kind of wanted to sort of share it and just
Mm.
put it out there. And if people were receptive to it, then great. So it was kind of like helped me as well, help build confidence again after sort of mental health issues. And I just thought, I'm going to go for it and try it out. So I've been doing it now. Trying to remember now. I think it was about April, May time I started, around that sort of period. And I've enjoyed it ever since. And, it's been interesting looking in, it helps me discover more about the diet. So I'm doing my research in different elements, and I've been looking at aspects of sort of just human health as well, not necessarily just about the carnivore diet, but how we as humans can be more optimal, and not necessarily a sort of biohacking side of things, but just doing things more naturally. So that like all of this has sort of made me more aware of sort of the world around me and such, and what I can do to make me sort of more optimal.
Do you think it's changed your attitude towards health by creating this content and researching it?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I'd say it was doing this research. I'm looking at like I'm doing. I mean, this year what I've noticed is I can read so much more and so much more easier. I set myself a challenge at the beginning of the year to read a lot of books this year, and I think I'm about to complete about my 17th book this year.
Wow.
With Now, I haven't read 17 books, I think, in the last 17 years. So the fact that I've been able to do that, I was like, there's something's changed. I can focus on a book, and I read a lot about social media and how that affects human health, and reading a lot about the industries, sort of big pharma, big food, and big tech as well, that again is affecting our health around. And this, I've have such an interest in that now, about just doing things naturally, looking back more to sort of Paleolithic sort of times, and hunter gatherer, thinking how would we survive then. Obviously we can't replicate everything there, because we are, we live indoors now, we do things differently. So such as, vitamin D, getting as much of that in. So I do take vitamin D supplements, because living up in the north, it can be quite dark and dreary at times. Getting the sun
Yeah.
isn't the best. So I take, and doing more research on that, like I was taking 4,000 IU before, and I did some research. I don't know if you're aware of Dr. Ken Berry.
Yeah, yeah, I love
Um,
his stuff.
so I read his book recently. That's a really good book, and in there he recommends humans should actually consume, if you don't get a lot of sunshine, about 8,000 IU. So I was like, there we go. There's a bit of interesting information. So I've done that. I feel great from that as well. So, and again, like reading things from like Dr. Ken Berry, where I don't know if you've read his book, The Lies My Doctor Told Me.
I haven't read his book, but I watch his videos.
Yeah. So the book is really interesting, and it just goes across, what medical professionals tell us versus what is actually true. And that's, I've read a lot into that, and I've just become, gained so much more of an interest in doing that research, like you said, watching YouTube videos, and just finding out better ways to be sort of a better human, really.
Yeah. So you spoke there about big pharma
Yeah.
and the health industry. Why do you think that all of this natural way of eating, getting sun, making sure you get enough sleep,
Yeah.
fasting even, and obviously this eating a lot of meat,
Yeah.
why do you think that is not made, I'd say, available to that information of how you should be living is promoted by big pharma and the healthcare industry essentially?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the big pharma wants to make money ultimately. And if they were to put this information out readily to people, then they wouldn't be selling their pharmaceuticals as often, and they wouldn't be making the money. So they wouldn't become such big giants that we see now. If people did take more responsibility for their health instead of, relying upon pharmaceutical help, then, the industry wouldn't be, still be there, of course, because there are certain issues out there that need the medication, but they wouldn't be as big as they are today. So I think, we see a lot of, the information about the carnivore diet being kind of like sort of suppressed, not suppressed so much, but like pushed away, like saying, no, 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 that's unhealthy, it's bad for you, it's dangerous. If it was dangerous, I wouldn't be here now talking to you, and I wouldn't feel the best, I've ever felt. As I said to you earlier, I haven't seen my doctor at all since starting the carnival diet this year, because I haven't been ill this year at all. So I think the reason that they, don't talk about this is because they're only in it to make their sort of pockets bigger, and unfortunately, it's at the detriment of the health of the public.
Do you think there'll ever be a point where this will change?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it will only ever change when people change. So it's not necessarily the companies, it's when, you know, for example, like us two, we've done our research, we've looked into things, we've tried different things. Not everything works. And I don't think, I never push the carnivore diet to anybody, because I don't think it works for everybody. But I do recommend eating real food. So, whether that be paleo or like a keto sort of hybrid as such. So I do recommend that side of things, but that would only work when people start doing it for themselves, I think. And when the people start looking into their health as their responsibility instead of somebody else's, such as their doctors or pharmaceutical companies, then I think the change will come. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, one can only hope, but I think um, at the moment there is a much bigger push for plant-based, vegan,
Yeah,
especially because it's just such a huge industry.
this is
Being,
it. And this is kind of like with the big food side of thing as well, where, the vegan diet is cheap. You can make lots of foods from the vegan, ingredients very cheap and sell them for, a lot more and make a big profit on it. And again, it's all about profit. It's not always about health. It's about profit for these companies. And this is again, the vegan thing has been pushed heavily and heavily. There's no wonder. If you look at your fast food chains now who are doing vegan foods, it's because it costs them a lot more to do vegan, a lot less to do vegan food than it does for the meat. So
yeah,
it fills their pockets, which is again, but it's being sold as a health food. Now, like if it's going to take you away from processed foods, which unfortunately there's a lot of processed vegan foods nowadays. But if you do stick to a very raw vegan diet, you will see some benefits to begin with. So you will, because you're taking away refined sugars and all of these sort of things, you're taking away processed foods, you will get benefit. But I don't think it's a sustainable diet, in my
mm,
opinion. I don't think it's a healthy diet either. I think, it's great that they're off processed foods, but as I said, the sustainability of it is the fact that it's, the bioavailability of nutrients, um, the amount of spinach you have to eat in order to get the same as what you get in one steak. It's, you'd have to eat tons of it, and we just can't do that as human beings. So, and there's a reason why we have a certain stomach as compared to. I mean, I always hear the argument, well, an ox is very strong and all they eat is grass. But they're ruminant animals. We're not. They have different stomachs to process that in order to make them strong. But then also, all they do is eat from sort of dusk till dawn, whereas we do other things in between. So yeah, I think it's kind of a dangerous world, really, the vegan world, Myers.
yeah. But I mean, I'm hopeful that maybe one day things will get better. But who knows? In terms
Yeah,
of in terms of your channel, what is the future of your channel? Any future plans for what you want to be doing with it?
yeah, okay. So I'm still going to look at honestly the strength side of things
Mm.
and sort of the gym because it's one of my passions that I think does have its place within the carnivore community. As you said earlier, there's forums and stuff like that. People are worried about losing strength, so I want to try and push it out there and say, it's not that bad. Yes, you will lose it initially, but it will come back if you just bear with it. And again, like touching upon human health. So my initial focus was the carnivore diet purely, but I've kind of, I do come back to it in most videos. Like my last video was about, I don't know if you saw it, about being human and
Yeah,
our instincts and how I find, carnivore diet has helped with returning to some of the instincts. And I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by sort of alternative therapy. So I've got some red light therapy coming after Christmas. So I'm going to do some videos on that. Himalayan pink salts, all that sort of stuff. So just looking at, becoming sort of the best version of you that you can be more naturally without using pharmaceuticals, without using sort of any big tech, big farm stuff as well. So that's kind of like how I want to move in the future. And I know you do some sort of similar things to that as well, don't you?
in regards to what? Sorry.
So I'm looking at about like sort of different aspects. So you're not purely about
No, I
carnivore.
don't do
Yeah,
purely carnivore.
yeah,
Mainly just alternative newsy side of things.
yeah,
Carnivore diet, I think, is one of them. Um,
yeah.
Spiritual and mental, all mind, body, and spirit, basically, all them three things.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think, there is, I'm not a religious person or anything like that, but I do think, there's space for spirituality. I look at I've looked at Buddhism and things like that as well about what they do, and I find it very interesting. I think it has its place in our life. That even if you go back to the sort of Paleolithic times, those people did have more of a spiritual side, and we obviously don't know they were happier people, but they obviously didn't have the stresses of today, so they could obviously these spirituality kind of side of things can help us, I think, develop as a human.
Definitely. I mean, I completely agree. I think it's one of them, like diet is a really personal thing. And I think, it's fine if some people aren't spiritual, but I think, again, spirituality means something different for everyone.
Yeah,
Be it believing in something, or even sort of self-care can be spiritual to some people. So,
yeah,
yeah. Um, so do you plan, talking about the future,
yeah.
do you plan on sticking with this way of eating for the foreseeable future, or do you have plans on changing it? What's your plans?
Okay. Yeah, so for the time being, I'm sticking with it. I have sort of toyed with the idea of maybe introducing some berries here and there. So, but I'm going to leave that now for some time. I'm quite content with how I'm eating. Luckily, I enjoy it. Like that's the big thing is like I get asked a lot, do you not miss this? Do you not miss that? And I'm like,
Mm,
no, because I love the food that I'm eating. I don't think about that. But I have toyed with the idea, yeah, of maybe some berries now and again, so it wouldn't be like a daily staple. And I have also toyed with the idea of things such as like olives and cheeses as well, so specifically like halloumi cheese. But I'm kind of a big question mark in that at the moment. And I mentioned it about 2 months ago to my other half, and he asked me the other day saying, are you gonna do that?" And I'm like, "No, not yet. I'm happy with how I am. And I'm just gonna sort of play it, and I'm kind of fluid with it a lot of the time anyway. So I'm kind of going, well, I'm feeling good. Don't need to change anything. But then when I start noticing something that's not quite right, I'll look into it and see whether there's something either I need to eliminate or bring back. So recently, I stopped chicken recently because I kind of got fed up with the taste of it myself. Really, it was kind of weird. Now I was somebody who would devour chickens like hell of a lot before, but recently the taste of chicken it really put me off. So I've kind of I'm sticking with mostly red meat. I do eat pork still, um, but yeah, I'm sticking sort of more in that sphere. So I have eliminated another thing recently as well.
um, one sec, like, my brain's just gone again.
It's all right.
It's just time of day.
Yeah, that is.
um,
Yeah,
but in terms of, I think the important thing you sort of said about there was, and I think there is a bit of a dogma in the carnivore world, in
yeah,
terms of, I think if people say they're going to no longer be a strict carnivore, then they act like it's the end of the world. Like everyone
yeah,
else makes out that, they're not a bad person, but sort of makes out that what they're doing is a terrible thing.
yeah. I think with that, it's as I mentioned before, you've got to do what's right for you.
Mm,
And if you know, like as and you mentioned, it's diet, everything. It's individual, and it's great to be part of a community, a wider community that does something in common. But nobody ever does everything the same way, and people, you've got to look at it, balance it with sort of eating that sort of way of eating and quality of life as well. And with Christmas being around the corner, now and again I'm going to have probably something as a bit naughty that carnivores will probably kick me out for. Um, but I'm going to allow myself, and I know I have a plan in my mind, going, okay, I'm going to allow that, but then I'm going to either fast after that so my body can work through it, or I will just, some person who can just flip the switch and just go back to it, without an issue. Now, I don't recommend people do this, especially for those who are starting out in the carnivore, because if you've only recently come off sort of processed foods and stuff, and sugars particularly, then it's not probably wise to sort of have something like that, because you could just slip back into it. So you've got to know where you're at, and I think it's got to be individual. So I don't always say to people when they ask me for any advice on dieting or anything like that, I say, well, they know that I eat a carnivore diet, and I say, well, it may not be right for you just because I'm doing it and I've got the effects, and it's worked for me. It may not work for you, and I always recommend people start off paleo. I always say, like, if you can go to paleo and make that difficult transition from processed foods to having just real food, and then have a look how you feel after that. Review it, see how you feel, then make different steps. Even maybe go autoimmune paleo after that, and then keto. Like, I do think it's better to do it quite gradually for the majority of people. Although I was sort of paleo keto, it wasn't for long before I just decided I'm going carnivore. So, like I said, I don't push it to people. I think there are other ways of eating that can benefit people more.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I remember when I went carnivore, it was literally wake up one day, and I was quite lucky because I had my dad who had done it before. He did paleo before, for years. And then he said, well, if you're going to do carnivore, then we'll do it tomorrow. And it was like 2 days after my birthday, so I just got loads of birthday chocolate too. But
Nice.
he sort of said, well, just do it tomorrow and I'll start it with you as moral support. And we just went in 100%. There was initially I did have avocado on a tiny bit, but that was the one thing I think holding me back for a while in terms of inflammation, to cut that out. But I think as soon as, I think I just thought, if I just go all in because I'm desperate. But yeah, I think that, so getting on to advice, what would be your one piece of advice you could give to someone who is looking out at starting on a carnivore diet?
Okay, so my advice would be, that's a good question actually, think about that bit. So somebody going on to the carnivore diet, I would say make sure you're ready for it as well. Like, if you're somebody who's sort of eaten the sort of standard Western diet for as long as you can remember, then test it first, see if it works for you, if you're able to do it. And if it's not, then, because the hardest part is the initial change from processed food to real food. And if you're going to find it difficult, then maybe going on to carnivore diet to begin with isn't for you. And you need to maybe, as I said, keep going back to look at the paleo diet, because there are things within the paleo diet that can help you. If you've got those urges for sugary treats, you can have a bit of fruit or those sort of stuff. But I have seen, like, my partner was in a similar situation, so I'd gone carnivore. He wanted to do the same, but found it extremely difficult sticking to it, purely because of those sort of I'm trying to think of the word now. My brain's gone now. It's the sort of like those urges to have, a sweet treat, that kind of stuff. So I said, well, maybe right now isn't the best time for you to attempt it. Maybe we should look at going paleo, do real food, and then bring it down. So he's done paleo, autoimmune paleo. We've been cutting little bits out. And in the new year, he's going to go what we're going to call carnivore light. So eating predominantly carnivore diet foods, but with sort of low carbohydrate vegetables. So no more fruit. but low carbohydrate vegetables such as like cauliflower, that kind of thing.
It's kind of like a ketovore sort of thing.
Kind of, yeah, but no. She was just going to get rid of the sugars now. No more fruit,
Yeah,
no more that side of things. And some people, it's not so it's not just an instant. This is suddenly I'm in this now. It can be a journey. It can be a year's journey. It could be 2 years journey. And I was quite lucky and able just to switch and go, right. This is me now. This is how I eat. This is what and it was quite easy for me, but I recognize that out there, it's not as easy for other people. So, just be prepared that it's going to be a long journey, and that's not going to be an overnight thing.
yeah,
It's not going to be, it's not going to be easy at times as well. That, as you mentioned before, the first sort of like week or two can be quite, you think, why the hell am I doing this to myself? But if you can get through that, and you will see the benefits, and that can, some people might say that sounds like a very hard and fast, you will see benefits. But just speaking from my experience and from who I've spoken to, I've done interviews in the past, and the amount of people that I've spoken to just saying, I've done a lot, been on carnivore, and I've benefited a hell of a lot.
yeah. I mean, I think it's one of them things where it's a way of eating versus a diet. I mean,
Yeah,
carnivore diet just simplifies it down, but it is just once you're on it, you don't expect results within a week or whatever you think it's
yeah,
going to be like. I mean, especially for my dad, like when he went on mainly because of weight loss and
okay,
being really overweight, and for a while there was no real change. The scale stayed the same, and it was got about a few months in, it was just it just started like going and
yeah,
going and going, and I think he's lost almost 2 stone now since
wow,
July,
that's
which
great.
is
Yeah,
pretty good. But I think it is one of them things, like you've said before, you just need to experiment with it. If
yeah,
something's not working, cut it out. I mean, for my dad, he found that once he started increasing his fats dramatically,
yeah,
the weight comes off a lot faster, and interchanging fasting, so
yeah.
doing extended fast and that intermittent fast, it is all just a journey. And like,
It is.
completely agree with you. People expect to wake up one day and magically be a completely different person, but it
Yeah.
is just a huge journey, and I mean it's well
Yeah,
worth it.
it is, and as you said, it's more than a diet. It is it's kind of a way of life, and like it's opened my eyes to a lot of other things. I do put it down to, like, I've mentioned in videos before, I'm consuming a lot more fat. So, and our brains are made of about 60-70% fat. So obviously, where we've gone through the past of the dogma of fat, we've got to have low fat diets and all this sort of stuff. I think that's done us more damage. We see a lot more dementia and Alzheimer's these days, and this has come from an age of low fat diets because our brains are not being fed enough. And since eating a more fattier diet, my brain seems to be sort of excelling now. I'm reading a lot more. I'm doing a lot more. I do my YouTube videos now, do the research for that, and just being able to focus on things as well. And it's opened my eyes to sort of alternative ways of thinking, alternative ways of doing stuff as well. Instead of going with the status quo of the conventional wisdom, which hasn't done anybody any good up until now. And that I start questioning things a lot more as well. So, to the detriment of my boss and all this sort of stuff sometimes, where I'm questioning why are we doing this and all. But it's, I think it's a good thing. We need to question things more. We need to go, well, actually, is that right for me? Is this the right path for me to go to? Just because somebody's got a certificate doesn't mean they're an expert. So, we need to just question things ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think start questioning why things the way they are, compare it to
Yeah,
what the world used to be like. You know, however
Yeah,
many years ago, if you look in the past, people weren't suffering from a lot of the illnesses that we have today, like you've touched on
exactly.
with
Yeah,
dementia, and
yeah,
start asking why. So yeah, I definitely think that's it. But so wrapping things up,
yeah.
how can people get in touch with you, find out more about you, and discover you?
Yeah, of course. So I'm on Instagram as Carnivorous Beast, one word. So you can find me there. You can message me on there if you want. I'm always answer messages. I really want to get to talking to people. Want to, just have a conversation about things. Want to help people as well. So if you do have any questions, you can message me there. I'm obviously on YouTube as you alluded to before, so Carnivorous Beast as well. And I've recently joined Parler as well, so I'm getting my head around that. So Carnivorous Beast on that as well. So across the board, nice and easy. But yeah, I wouldn't message me on there yet because I'm still getting my head around
What made
it.
you want to join Parler, just to ask?
Um, I was looking at ways to sort of broaden my horizons with my channel, sort of get a bit more reach, and I'd seen a lot of the carnival community seems to be moving over there
Mm.
from I've never been, well, a long, long, long time ago I was on Twitter, but I gave that because I thought the thing Twitter was poison for me, and so I moved away from that, and I saw a lot of people in the carnivore community, Sean Baker, Carnival Yogi, Ken Berry, moving over towards Parler. And I thought I'm gonna just give it a go, see what it's like. And yeah, it's not my favorite, but I'm gonna bear with it, just see how
See
I get
where it
on with
goes. Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen the same, but I mean, I've used Parler. I just can't get my head around it. I just don't
yeah.
don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
But
I'm exactly the same. So we'll see. We'll see if I stay on there for much longer.
yeah.
But Instagram mainly, I'm on there. You can access me. I don't get notifications, so if it does take me a while to respond to people, I will respond to you. It's just when I decide to go on
Yeah, I'll
it.
put all the links down below for people watching. All of your links will be there so people can check it out. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really good actually. So yeah, I really
Yeah,
enjoyed it.